Emily Carter never expected to hear Adrian Blackthorne's name again. Not after the way he had ended things. Not after the silence. Not after the heartbreak. But on a grey Monday morning, she got a call from Blackthorne Holdings asking her to come to Adrian's office immediately. She almost said no. Then she looked at the unpaid bills on her kitchen counter, the overdue rent notice, and the message from the hospital about her mother's treatment balance. So she went. Adrian's office sat at the top of a glass tower in Manhattan, high above the city like he owned the skyline itself. And maybe he did. When Emily walked in, he was standing by the window in a black suit, one hand in his pocket, the other around a glass of whiskey. He turned. And just like that, all the old damage came rushing back. He was still devastatingly handsome, still calm, still impossible to read, still the man who had shattered her. "Emily," he said. She folded her arms. "If this is some kind of joke, I'm leaving." "It's not a joke." "Then make it quick." Adrian walked to his desk and slid a folder toward her. "I need a wife." Emily stared at him. Then she laughed. "I'm sorry," she said. "Did you hit your head?" "My grandfather is dying," Adrian said. "He wants to see me married before he passes." Emily's smile disappeared. "And what exactly does that have to do with me?" Adrian held her gaze. "I need you to marry me." At first, Emily thought he had completely lost his mind. Then he explained. His grandfather's shares in the company were tied to a family stability clause. If Adrian appeared unstable, or incapable of protecting the Blackthorne legacy, the board could challenge his position as CEO. He needed a wife. Believable wife. Someone his grandfather already knew and trusted. Someone like Emily. "It would only be for 6 months, Adrian said. "You'd move into my penthouse, attend public events with me, and play the role of my wife until the board vote is over." Emily looked at him in disbelief. "You haven't spoken to me in 3 years, she said. "You broke my heart, disappeared from my life, and now you want me to save your empire?" Adrian's expression tightened. "I'm offering you $2 million. The room went silent. $2 million. Enough to pay her mother's medical bills. Enough to save the bookstore she was desperately trying to keep alive. Enough to breathe again. Emily hated that her hand trembled when she looked at the contract. "Why me?" she whispered. Adrian's voice dropped. "Because my grandfather loved you," he said. "Because he'll know if I marry a stranger. And because no matter what happened between us, you're the only woman I trust." That was the moment she should have walked away. Instead, Emily picked up the pen and signed. The rules were simple. 6 months, 1 fake marriage. No one could know the truth. When Emily handed the contract back, Adrian looked at her with that unreadable expression that had once ruined her sleep. "This changes nothing between us," she said. His eyes stayed on hers. "It changes everything." 5 days later, Emily married Adrian in the private garden of the Blackthorne estate. The ceremony was small, elegant, and entirely fake. She wore an ivory silk gown chosen by someone else. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo and a face like carved stone. Their guests smiled, toasted, and admired them as if they were the perfect couple. And maybe they looked like one. That was the dangerous part. Because Adrian's grandfather believed it. When he took Emily's hands after the ceremony, his eyes shone with emotion. "You came back to him," he whispered. "I knew you would." Guilt twisted in her chest. She wasn't sure what hurt more, lying to a dying man, or pretending Adrian had never once meant everything to her. That night, Emily moved into Adrian's penthouse overlooking Central Park. It was sleek, luxurious, and far too intimate. She assumed they would keep their distance. Separate rooms, separate lives, separate hearts. But Adrian had already thought ahead. "My grandfather will visit," he told her. "The staff will talk. The family will watch. We may need to share the master suite when people are here." Emily stared at him. "You're unbelievable. I prefer prepared." They made rules. No telling anyone about the contract. No disappearing without warning. And if either of them started treating the arrangement like something real, it would end immediately. Emily agreed. But the problem with fake marriages was that pretending every day started to feel dangerously close to living. It started with small things. Adrian still remembered how she took her coffee. He noticed when she was tired. He quietly arranged transportation for her mother's hospital appointments after hearing Emily was struggling. He asked about the bookstore. He made sure she ate when she got too stressed to remember. And every time he placed a hand at the small of her back during public events, Emily's heart betrayed her a little more. He was supposed to be cold, distant, untouchable. Instead, he was attentive in all the ways that mattered. And it was making her forget why she hated him. One rainy night, Emily came home to find Adrian bleeding through the sleeve of his white dress shirt. A cut from broken glass at the office, he claimed. "Sit down," she ordered. He obeyed. She cleaned the wound in silence, kneeling in front of him while the penthouse around them fell quiet. "You always do this," she murmured. "Do what? Act like pain is just an inconvenience." His gaze rested on her face. "Pain usually is." Emily looked up at him. "No," she said softly. "It's just lonely." Something changed in Adrian's expression. Then he touched her cheek and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was 3 years of unfinished love crashing into her all at once. Emily kissed him back. And then reality hit. She pulled away, breathing hard. "No," she whispered. "We're not doing this." Adrian stood jaw tight. "Emily, you kissed the woman you left." The words landed between them like broken glass. And just like that, the distance returned. The week before the board vote, Adrian's younger brother Nathan arrived at the estate. Nathan had always been charming in the most dangerous way, smiling while looking for the exact place to put the knife. At dinner, he made sure to remind Emily of that. "I'm surprised you came back," Nathan said lightly. "I assumed you had too much self-respect." Before Emily could answer, Adrian's voice turned cold. "That's enough." The room went silent. Emily had seen Adrian angry before. But this wasn't anger. It was protection. And for some reason, that shook her more than the insult ever could. Later that night, Emily found Adrian alone on the terrace. The city lights glittered in the distance, but the air between them felt heavy. She looked at him and finally asked the question she had carried for 3 years. "Why did you leave me?" Adrian went still. Then, after a long silence, he told her the truth. Years ago, before he disappeared, he had planned to propose. He had bought the ring. He had planned their future. He had loved her enough to know he wanted forever. But his father found out. And he threatened Emily. If Adrian married her, his father would destroy her family financially, ruin her mother's life, and make sure every door in New York closed to her forever. So Adrian did the only thing he thought would keep her safe. He broke her heart first. Emily stared at him in disbelief, tears burning behind her eyes. "You should have told me." "I know." "No," she said, voice shaking. "You don't get to say it like that. You don't get to tell me you shattered me to protect me and act like that makes it okay." "It doesn't," Adrian said quietly. "It makes it the biggest mistake of my life." Then he looked at her with a kind of honesty that almost hurt to witness. "I never stopped loving you." Emily should have walked away. Instead, she kissed him. This kiss was different from the first one. This one wasn't about memory. It wasn't about old chemistry. It wasn't about weakness. It was grief, relief, love, anger, hope. Adrian pulled her into his arms like a man who had spent years starving. And for one impossible moment, Emily let herself believe that maybe they could still find their way back to each other. But by morning everything collapsed. Photos of them kissing on the terrace appeared online under a brutal headline suggesting their marriage was fake and financially motivated. Someone had leaked the truth. The board called an emergency meeting. Adrian's grandfather collapsed. And all signs pointed to Nathan. At the hospital, Adrian sat in the waiting room looking more exhausted than Emily had ever seen him. For the first time, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man carrying too much alone. "You should leave," he told her. "The press is already circling." Emily took his shaking hand in both of hers. "I'm not leaving." He looked at her like he wanted to argue. She didn't let him. "You do not get to push me away again because things are hard," she said. "Not this time." Something in Adrian broke at those words. And when his grandfather finally woke up, weak but smiling, he asked to see them both. The old man looked between them and sighed. "I'm old," he said. "Not stupid." Emily almost laughed through her tears. "Your marriage may have started as a transaction," he continued, "but don't insult me by pretending that's all it became." Then he looked at Emily. "Do you love him?" She swallowed hard. "Yes." He turned to Adrian. "And you?" Adrian never looked away from her. "With everything I have." The old man smiled faintly. "Then stop behaving like idiots." 2 days later, Adrian walked into the emergency board meeting with Emily by his side. Nathan was already there. So was the entire board. Adrian placed a folder on the table. Inside was evidence proving Nathan had leaked the story to the press and had been manipulating company finances behind the scenes. Nathan's confidence cracked for the first time. The board removed him by the end of the day. The scandal quieted. Adrian kept his company. And the world moved on. But one problem remained. The contract was ending. On the final morning of their 6-month arrangement, Emily stood in the penthouse holding the contract that had started everything. "So that's it," she said softly. "That's it," Adrian answered. "No more fake marriage. No more pretending. No more excuses." Emily looked at him. "What happens now?" Adrian crossed the room slowly. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emily stopped breathing. When he opened it, the ring inside caught the morning light. "I bought this years ago," Adrian said, voice rough. "I kept it because I couldn't let go of the life I wanted with you." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "I can't promise perfect," he said. "But I can promise honesty. I can promise I will never choose silence over you again. And I can promise that I've loved you through every mistake I ever made." Then he got down on one knee. "Emily Carter, will you marry me? For real this time. No contract. No lies. Just me asking the woman I've loved for years to choose me again." Emily was already crying when she whispered the only answer that mattered. "Yes." Adrian smiled like the weight of the world had finally lifted. And when he kissed her, there was no audience. No board. No contract. No lie. Only love. Real this time. 3 months later, they married again in the same garden where their fake wedding had taken place. But this time Emily chose the dress. This time, Adrian wrote vows he could barely finish without his voice breaking. This time, there was no contract hidden in his pocket. Only a ring, promise, and a love story that had finally learned how to tell the truth. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Velvet Tales for more romance stories, billionaire love stories, fake marriage drama, and unforgettable second chance romances.